What if I told you the past 2 seasons, Tennessee's outscored Missouri 128-48 on 1,407 yards of total offense combined, and of that total offense, 722 yards of rushing? You think it's a pretty easy, third straight win, right? Well, not so quick. Missouri is not the Missouri of the last 2 seasons. I'll tell you why, that and more, and why I still think Tennessee's got a good chance, all on a Tuesday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Vols. It is your team every single day. Appreciate you everydayers for being here and making this show what it is. And today is your show. We'll get into Twitter Tuesday questions in segments 2 and 3. But quick, a shout out to our friends at Game Time. Download that Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We got a fun show coming up today. We'll get the best of Josh Heupel from his Monday press conference, what he had to say, kind of open it up about the University of Kentucky, or golly, that was a couple weeks ago, about Missouri and some of those playmakers like Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Cody Schrader, and some of those other guys. Plus, again, we'll get into your mailbag questions. A whole lot to get into today, so let's go ahead and get there. Well, quickly, push the 10K on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed and you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening, have a YouTube account, please subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Just helps the show grow and get it more in front of Tennessee fans. I really appreciate your guys' help with that. Josh Heupel was asked about Brady Cook, the quarterback from Missouri, on Monday, the challenges of stopping him, what he does well. Here's what Josh Heupel had to say about Missouri quarterback Brady Cook.
Listen, he's smart, he's accurate with the football, and he is athletic, has the ability to affect the game with his feet. And, we got to do a great job in the pass game. We got to affect him, not let him be comfortable in the pocket. While doing that, you cannot let him escape the pocket. He'll be dynamic and make big plays with his feet and his arm as he breaks contain. And then he's obviously a part of their run game too, and can hurt you there.
Brady Cook, 2,400 yards, 2,471 yards on the season. That's 4th most in the SEC. Completing passes at 67%, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's averaging 274 yards through the air a game. That is a big number. Plus, as Heupel mentioned there, he's dynamic on the ground. He ran for 106 yards against Tennessee a season ago. He has 304 yards gained on the season. That's not counting sacks. And 5 touchdowns. Tennessee will need to be dynamic, have to spy him a little bit, and know that he is sneaky athletic, and he can convert on some of those third downs with his legs. And so Tennessee will have to look out for that. I mean, Brady Cook is orchestrating an offense that is top 5 in the SEC. Missouri, top 5 in points per game at 32, 434 yards of total offense. That's 5th. 285 yards through the air. That's 5th best in the conference. The run game, 149 yards on the ground. That's 7th best in the league. But Cody Schrader, their running back, is leading the SEC in rushing yards at 919, 10 touchdowns on the season, averaging 102 yards per game on the ground. Again, I like to make fun of Eli Drinkwitz. I like to poke fun at him, over the offseason and everything, but he's done a really good job this year. Coaching up that offense, and of course, this is an offense that's going to score, so Tennessee's defense is, really going to have to be ready. And we'll talk more about it as the week goes on, but, Kentucky did one thing really well, and that was running the football. Tennessee's great at defending the run, so shut down the run, make Devin Leary beat you through the air. Well, Tennessee did just that, and Devin Leary nearly beat Tennessee. Brady Cook is much better. But it all starts with stopping the run and Cody Schrader on the ground, and Tennessee's got the best rush defense in the SEC, so I like Tennessee to slow down Cody Schrader and make Brady Cook beat him. And it's just, can you make more plays on the defensive end, and you hope that pass rush will get there. More on the pass rush later coming up in the show. But a guy that Brady Cook loves to throw to, Luther Burden, former 5-star, one of the best players in the 2023 or 2022 recruiting cycle. Yeah, he's a sophomore. What Josh Heupel thinks about Luther Burden, and how challenging is it when an offense that is very well-rounded, good on the ground, good through the air, trying to take something away. Josh Heupel says it starts with the run game, like I was just saying a moment ago. Here's Josh Heupel on stopping the Missouri offense and wide receiver Luther Burden.
You got to be really good in the run game because everything will play off of that too. They create a lot of big plays with chunk plays, design shots down the football field. He's a really good player, and so when he gets the ball in his hands, he's difficult to bring down. They do a good job of moving him around too. Where you got to track where he's at for some of the ball in hands, and they try to find matchups for him. So we got to do a great job against him, but he's not the only wide receiver. They got a really good core group of wide receivers that are dynamic.
And again, Luther Burden, he'll line up outside, he'll line up in the slot. They'll move him around a little bit. Tennessee will have to account for Luther Burden on Saturday. We'll continue to break down exactly what this defense, what this offense does. That's usually in the segment number 1 of our Friday shows, but do want to kind of add some context to these quotes from Josh Heupel as the page is officially turned now to Missouri. UConn win was great. That was awesome, but it was just UConn, and you're back into SEC play and a chance to be really figuring out who the second team in the SEC East is behind Georgia. And if you're watching Georgia Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin beats Georgia on Saturday and you beat Missouri, Tennessee that is, Tennessee has an opportunity to play for a spot in Atlanta. So, again, a lot on the line this weekend. What about that defense for Missouri? Middle of the road stats-wise, but still miles and miles better. I read off the stats there in the open. Tennessee combined in his first 2 meetings, 128 to 48 the score. In 2 games, Tennessee racked up 1,407 yards of total offense and ran the football for 722 yards on the ground in 2 games. Defense, again, miles and miles better than where it was when it first started under Eli Drinkwitz. Here's what Josh Heupel had to say about the Missouri defense.
Yep, fast, aggressive, tackle extremely well, play a bunch of man on the outside. They're going to make you earn it. You look at them statistically, defensively, playing the run extremely well and are one of the top teams in the country in creating sacks. They got really good players up front. They do it with pressure, but their first, second, and third levels are tied in together extremely well.
Playing the run extremely well. I mean, I hear what he's saying, and I'm not trying to discredit them. 114 yards of what they're averaging, given up on the ground. That's 5th best in the SEC defensively. But when they play teams with a pulse of any type of run game, they allowed 138 yards on the ground to Kansas State, allowed 274 yards on the ground to LSU. Sure, that skews it a little bit because that was such a big number, and you have a Heisman candidate in Jaden Daniels that had over 145 yards on the ground that game. Gave up 179 yards to Kentucky on the ground, gave up 131 yards to Georgia this past weekend. So, again, when they played some good teams have found a way to run on Missouri, and I think Tennessee is going to be able to do that as well. A lot of Missouri talk this week, a lot of Missouri talk coming up in the mailbag portion of the show, but I do want to look back. Nico Iamaleava's first career touchdown pass. It was to McAllen Castles, 19 yards. And here's what Josh Heupel had to say about Nico's first touchdown, the celebration that ensued with the entire team, and then McAllen Castles on how it was catching the first touchdown ever by Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, your first one's always a big one as an individual player, for Nico, and then for the guys around him to be excited for him and what he did. That's offensive lineman, skill guys. It's Joe. It's everybody. They see the work that he puts in, the type of player that he is, and that was a big moment for him.
Just for him to go out there and kill it the way he did was awesome to see. Especially, I get most of my reps with him every day, so it kind of just felt second nature. And he was spinning the ball out there, and for me to catch it was a big deal. I kept the gloves. I had him sign it today, so those will probably be hanging up in my house after his career here. So pretty cool.
Kept the gloves, had him sign them. Said he's going to have that as a keepsake from here on out. And, of course, McAllen Castles is done. He's out of eligibility after this year. Nico's going to go on and play for a couple more years. So that's saying something. I thought that was a pretty neat little quote there from McAllen Castles. That was the best of Josh Heupel, a little bit from McAllen Castles from a Monday press conference. The page is officially flipped to Missouri. Huge game coming up this week. We'll have a show on Thursday with Locked On Mizzou. We'll check in with Boogie Bentley on Friday. I'll give you my official Missouri preview on Friday as well. We'll have Ward Wednesday coming up on tomorrow's show. Big week coming up, and no better place to find all that action than right here at Locked On Vols. Do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, again, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on all that action than right now. You can bet on the spreads, the totals. We always like overs here on Locked On Vols because it's more fun, but also unders are in play as well. And if you're new to the game, I encourage you to do player props, individual stat lines for specific players, touchdowns over under 2.5. Rushing touchdowns over under 1.5. Those are a lot of fun to pay attention to as the game go on. So I encourage you to go check out FanDuel.com today. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. I want to thank you guys for tuning in here to Tuesday morning on Locked On Vols. Everydayers could not do this show without you, and today is your day. We answer your questions, comments, concerns at _Kane or at Locked On Vols, and of course on the VolQuest on the Locked On Vols YouTube channel. I got two jobs here, guys. Locked On Vols YouTube channel. And let's go ahead and start at the Locked On Vols YouTube channel. This guy's a VolQuester too. I know his name, and he's a loyal everyday listener, everydayer here on Locked On Vols. Roba22 said the last couple of weeks, the pass rush has not been making the impact it was earlier in the year. Just seems like they have not been able to get off blocks. This week, getting pressure and keeping him contained will be a huge factor. After the rewatches, what do you think has been the reason why our pass rush has not shown up? Good question. And I've heard Brent Hupp say this a couple of times since the game on Saturday. And I would agree with him after kind of going back and watching the tape. You're getting pressure off the edges. You know, James Pierce, Joshua Josephs, Roman Harrison, Tyler Barron a little bit as well. But that interior pressure has not been there like it was earlier, really since the first half of Alabama. The Omar Norman Lotts, the Amari Thomases, who did not play last game. He'll be fine. He'll play this weekend. The Bryson Easons. And I'll say it was a game against Akron. I get it. And that's why, like, sacks are very misleading. And it was Akron. I recognize that. But Tennessee had 3 defensive touchdowns. 2 of them were pick sixes. Both of those pick sixes came off pressure from the defensive line. One was James Pierce off the edge. The other was Karad Garland in the interior. So as long as you're affecting the play, forcing premature passes, whether it's incomplete, whether it's picked off, you're doing your job. Sure, you love to get home, and Tennessee needs to get home a little more, but I like to look at the TFL stat way more than the sack stat. Tennessee still has, I think, 31 sacks on the season, which is a pretty good number. Need to get more, but Tennessee has over 74, I think 76 TFLs on the season already with 3 games left, 4 games counting a bowl game. So Tennessee's still being disruptive, but you need to get home. And you're exactly right. Against Brady Cook, contain's going to be key. Set those edges, force them inside, and then the interior guys need to be there to clean it up. I love the Rabbits package. Get 2 Leos on the field, which is maybe a James Pierce and a Joshua Josephs, James Pierce, Roman Harrison. Move Tyler Barron inside and let Tyler Barron clean up because that's where a lot of his plays have come. Let's go to Vols fan in Georgia. God bless you. D package was shown for Missouri and Georgia. I know, not fantastic. Do we think he gets more run the next couple of weeks to spell the slot? Maybe. You've gotten opportunities to, if Squirrel needs a breather, you can move Dante Thornton to the slot and bring in Chaz Nimrod or Caleb Webb on the outside. I was an advocate for getting D. Williams in that game, number 1, because it was a game where you could play him. Number 2, get it on tape. Everyone knows, everyone in the Southeastern Conference should know who D. Williams is by now, right? And when you see that number 3 out there, you know he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. And I love play number 1 with Nico in the ball game. Did that little touch pass to him. An easy pass on the stat sheet, but really it's a run, it's jet sweep to kind of get both those guys going. Will we see D here on offense from here on out? I don't know. I would lean no, but I think it's a nice changeup. But also, we talk about packages and certain plays, for him. When you're running tempo, it's hard to do that. So we'll see. I would be open for it. I'm all for number 3 having the football in his hands, and I think you are as well. But if I were to say, will we see D. Williams on offense against Missouri and Georgia, I would probably say no. But that's something they're going to have to prepare for because they saw it on tape. So that's good to see. Let's go to Adam here. Adam says, I'm rooting for Kiffin this weekend. What are the chances he helps us out? I'd love for a bit of the SEC championship game to be on the line when Georgia comes to Neyland. Also, what's the biggest obstacle we have to overcome to beat Missouri this weekend? Absolutely. If you're a Tennessee fan, which you are if you're watching this podcast, unless you're a troll, just jump in the comment section. You're not watching anyway. You're just trolling. You need to be Ole Miss fans this weekend. You want Ole Miss to beat Georgia. I believe, I don't have the schedule in front of me. Forgive me, guys. I believe that game is in Oxford. You need Ole Miss to beat Georgia for sure, because if you hand Georgia a loss, Tennessee has 2 SEC losses. Tennessee's got to handle business against Missouri. That would give Missouri 3 SEC losses. Florida, of course, the other team that beat you, it's out of the running. You beat Missouri. Georgia loses to Ole Miss. You're playing for a spot in Atlanta at home, Neyland Stadium, CBS 3:30 kick. Absolutely, that'd be fun. So you need to root for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels this weekend for sure, and also Tennessee needs to handle business. What's the biggest obstacle we have to overcome to beat Missouri this weekend? It's Brady Cook. Not allowing. I'm going to go Brady Cook's legs. Again, he's going to get hits through the air, guys. He's going to throw for 300-plus yards. It's just going to happen. If you go into the game already knowing that, I think it helps. That's just going to happen. He's a good player, and Tennessee's pass defense, though improved, look at the stats. You might not believe me. Look at the stats. From 2021 to 2022, Tennessee was 122nd in pass defense, 127th in pass defense last year, though as a unit, the group improved. The defense overall. This year, Tennessee, I think, is 53rd in pass defense. Though it's improved, he's still going to get his. So I would say I have Tennessee's ability to slow down Cody Schrader on the ground. You won't stop him altogether, but I think slow him down. So I think it's going to come down to keeping Cook contained and not letting his legs be a reason why they stay on the field and pick up third down after third down after third down. Also in the red zone as well. Let's go to Matt here. Matt says, why does it seem that in just about every game, Tennessee has more players getting hurt than their opponents? Is that on strength and conditioning, coach? Well, to put it bluntly here, the extra points injuries are not real injuries, so there's that. We can take that out of the equation. And then, I know Tyler Barron went down for a moment. I'm sure Roman Harrison, I think, went down for a moment. I don't know. I see a lot of teams get hurt as well. I just think if you throw out those extra point injuries, quotation marks, then it's probably more even than you think. And but at the end of the day, if injuries continue to occur, then yes, that would go back to strength. Sometimes it's freak injuries and you can't do anything about it. But if you're getting the same certain kinds of injuries, I'm not saying this is the case for Tennessee. When I was at Carson Newman, we had a lot of shoulder injuries. That's something you can address in strength and conditioning in the offseason. Let's go to Ken. Ken says, I've got the over-under at 5 on how many times Coach Heupel will say at the end of the day in Thursday's press conference. You taking the over or the under? I think he was under on Monday's press conference, but Thursdays, he comes in, he knows it's a waste of time. We know it's a waste. I don't even go on Thursdays. I stay back and help from the home office because it's pointless to go over to campus for literally, it was 3 minutes and 45 seconds. It's very much an ongoing joke that Heupel's not going to say anything at all on Thursday. And he does kind of go into that coach speak of at the end of the day. I will go under because 5 is a big number, but he will definitely say it at least 3 times, maybe 4. Good question, Ken. Let's see here. Seth says, where the hell are the Orange Britches? Great game to bring them out on the road, contain Brady Cook, and hopefully Joe has a day like he's been having, and we beat Missouri one last time before they're not on our schedule every year anymore. GBO. Orange Britches, they've worn them. Were they in all orange earlier this year? They've worn the orange britches this year. I don't know. Tennessee likes to go stormtroopers on the road, and unless you're wearing the orange helmets, then you might not see the orange britches, but I don't think Tennessee's probably not wearing the orange helmet this week. I haven't heard that at all. But yeah, contain Cook, and then, a lot of these games are not going to be annual games anymore moving forward, and that's kind of sad. But again, Missouri's not one of those that you're going to be like losing sleep over. A big game coming up. Yeah, Seth, we'll see about those orange britches. Tim Smith says, can you talk about Josh Dobbs' performance yesterday and in general? Goodness gracious. What a competitor Josh Dobbs is. You saw it last year when he got traded from, guys, help me out here. Was it Cleveland? Was it wherever the heck he was? He was traded to Tennessee in week 17. And I remember, in speaking with, people around the Titans organization, they said, hey, he would not wear a wristband at practice this week. He was dedicated on memorizing the playbook. And he came in, he started that game against the Cowboys, I believe. Tennessee lost, but he played pretty well. And then he continues to get traded. You had the injury with Kyler Murray, and they trade him in preseason. He goes to Arizona. He's a starting quarterback, and he did some nice things. Murray's coming back, and they're going to play the backup this week. Yada yada. They're going to move on. Josh Dobbs gets traded to Minnesota because of the injury to Kirk Cousins. First couple plays of the game, the backup quarterback gets concussed. Josh Dobbs comes in, doesn't even know the name of the teammates, doesn't even know the entire playbook, had to go to the sideline and draw the offensive lineman over and say, hey, here's my cadence. And he goes out there and just balls out, man. I mean, just what a competitor. He is so easy to root for. He is so much fun to watch. He is so smart. This is the NFL, the freaking NFL. And for him to go and not practice at all and essentially start football games and win football games in the fourth quarter, it's incredible. Josh Dobbs, a new lease of life, 100% hanging around for a couple more years now in the NFL. He has been so much fun to watch, and I couldn't be happier for him. It's been a whole lot of fun to watch. Hey, we'll get more of your questions, more of your comments. That's coming up next here on Locked On Vols. Do want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to find last-minute deals on tickets, on shows, on concerts, all that type of stuff. You shouldn't have to worry about buying those tickets for that next big event. I mentioned sporting events. We're watching and listening to a sports podcast right now, Neyland Stadium, Lindsey Nelson Stadium, Thompson Bowling Arena at the Food City Center, but also a lot of times there's concerts, there's monster truck rallies, there's a lot of things going on over at TBA at Food City Center, and you can buy tickets to all those events by downloading the Game Time app. Killer last minute deal, all-in prices, views from your seat, the best price guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And one of my favorite things about Game Time, they have the lowest price guarantee, which pretty much means if you find a ticket cheaper in the same section, they're going to refund you 110% of that ticket total, plus event cancellation protection and job loss protection. Game Time truly has your back. Plus, you can see views of your seats before you even buy, so you know exactly what you're getting. So I encourage you to download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code VOLS for $20 off your first purchase. Use that promo code Locked On College, promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code Locked On College, LOCKED COLLEGE for $20 off your order. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, guys and gals, welcome back to your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. It is when you everydayers take over the show with your Twitter Tuesday questions, your X questions. Let's dive right back into it. Go to Kurt. What are your thoughts on Tennessee being the highest-ranked two-loss team? Kind of surprised by it, with one of those losses being Florida. New Year's Six bowl games are now back in play. Absolutely. I mean, Tennessee wins 8 games, and that's the absolute floor at this point, right? I mean, you're talking about Florida being a pretty realistic chance to go bowling. Liberty will try to get Tennessee. Music City would try to get Tennessee. Maybe even Duke's Mayo. But, I mean, you're going Gator. I think you're going Gator if you're at 8 wins. Now, if you get to 9 wins, I think Citrus is in play. I think Outback's in play even if you have 8 wins. I mean, Tennessee's, for a ratings perspective and plus from a fan traveling perspective, every bowl game wants Tennessee. So I would agree with that for sure, Kurt. Let's go. And you also ask about being the highest two-loss team. Well, it depends on what poll you look at. If you watch on YouTube, I'll pull up here the coaches poll, and this is the poll you're referring to. Here's Tennessee at number 12, and it is the highest-ranked two-loss team. If you look at the AP poll, I think Oregon State and Utah are both ranked ahead of Tennessee, and they have 2 losses. But, the coaches poll, coaches, SIDs, whoever vote on this poll, obviously value Tennessee's loss to Alabama. Here it's at the 8th highest team, 8th ranked team. Florida is a bad loss, but, look at some of these other losses some of these other teams have had. Missouri, we saw what Missouri did against Georgia, and of course that was impressive. LSU is a 2-loss team, or 3-loss team actually, but they could score. I don't know. I guess it's just kind of to each their own. A lot of coaches value Tennessee more than the media do, who Tennessee, of course, is ranked 14th in the AP by the media, but I think 12th. Yeah, 12th by the coaches poll. So, again, just kind of depends on what poll you look at. Tennessee's ability to score and how the offense is coming around, I think, plays into that as well. I think Joe Milton's evolution this season has helped in that regard, so that's probably had a little bit to do with it. Let's go to Ben here. Ben says, going to flip from Tennessee to UGA for a moment. Do you think Georgia's defensive line shift should be penalty for intent to deceive? It's usually solely to make the O-line jump and get a free 5 yards. To me, it's gimmicky, and it should be a penalty. What are your thoughts? To me, no, not at all. I mean, if you're talking about what I'm thinking about it, your entire defensive line at one of the last seconds shifting over a technique. I mean, that's done in high school. That's done in college. I mean, we did that when I was at Carson Newman. Speaking of which, RIP to Carl Torbush, former Carson Newman All-American, both in football and in baseball. Former head coach of ETSU, brought them out of the, restarted their program. Former head coach in North Carolina, former longtime defensive coordinator at North Carolina. One of the good guys. Great man, never cussed, never drank. Coached for the right reasons, loved his players. RIP to Carl Torbush. One of the greats for sure. But Ben, back to your question. No, I don't have an issue with it because I've seen it so many times throughout my life. It's nothing that Georgia's doing specifically. If you're talking about what I think you're talking about, is it gimmicky? I mean, maybe, but you see that all the way around. And plus, they're moving to another technique. It's like the same thing as the defensive backfield rolling down into cover 3. Like they have 2 high safeties up top. At the last second, you roll a safety down. You move a safety to the middle of the field. Then your corners have deep halves. Your safety over the top has a deep third. And then you have the safety that can play underneath as well. It's kind of the same thing. So I have no issue with it. Let's go to Heupel's Hype Man. Do you think we see Peely back this week? As of right now, I would say no. How much of D. Williams do you think we see on offense moving forward? I kind of talked about that earlier. Probably not a whole lot, but sign me up for it. I would love to see that. Sam Smith says, what time is the flight out to beautiful Columbia on the VolQuest private jet? Also, is Brady Cook good? I think Brady Cook is good. Is he great? Is he a Heisman guy? No, he's not. I do think Brady Cook is pretty solid, especially this year. Wish we had a private jet. Since Austin Price and I both have to do high school football at Dumpling Valley, Jeff County, man, it's a homecoming for me Friday night. We can't leave until Saturday morning, and the flight Saturday morning out of McGee-Tyson Airport is at 5 a.m. Thank goodness the game's at 3:30. That way we can get some sleep afterwards. And the flight out of Columbia, Missouri, actually it's St. Louis, which is 2 hours away. It's a horrible trip to Columbia, is at 5 a.m. as well, which is not great. We will win one day, says, how do we stop Luther Burden? He's pretty good. I'll talk about this a little bit on the VolQuest podcast on Tuesday. He's going to get his. You don't want him to take over the game, of course, but you need to be physical with him. Tennessee will throw a couple different players out at him. They need to bracket him when the opportunity arises. But you need to be physical with him because they're not calling a lot of pass interference. They're calling a lot of defensive holds, not a whole lot of pass interferences in college football this year. So I would say be physical with him, especially off the line. Press him, rough him up a little bit, interfere with him, and then when you get flagged, you get flagged. Let's go to James here. Twitter Tuesday, what are your overall thoughts from Saturday for the players who don't play a ton this year, but figure to play a lot next year? Not just Nico, but the guys on the O-line, DBs, etc. I got to be honest with you, offensive line, hadn't really, they looked fine on rewatch, but Akron was just really bad. Haven't taken a look at the Pro Football Focus stats that matter. I will for tomorrow's show. I was impressed with Ricky Gibson, thought he flashed. I was impressed with Jordan Thomas, thought he flashed. I was impressed with Ethan Davis. Cannot wait to see Ethan Davis as a tight end in this offense. Those are 3 that I would mention. Trying to work through these quickly here before we end our show. Drew says, speaking of Jordan Thomas looked like he played very well at Star. He also looked like he would add more speed to the back end. I don't know if that's just my eyes playing tricks on me or what. Wondering if anybody else noticed those 2 back there. You're talking about Thomas. Oh, and Ricky Gibson, you said above. Saw a lot of good things on Saturday, even though it was UConn. Had my eye specifically on Ricky Gibson. I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed it, but that kid brings tackling. The kid's tackling and closing speed looked really good. Yeah, I was impressed with both Ricky Gibson. I thought he tackled on the perimeter well. Jordan Thomas has a nose for the football. He's been banged up, and they've been cross-training him a lot. And, of course, you've got 2 veteran safeties that they're never going to part ways with. Jordan Thomas will be a starter in the defensive backfield if healthy next year. So he had a couple of third down stops. He played early in the game as well at Star, and so that was good to see. I like both Ricky Gibson and Jordan Thomas. I think you have the makings of some pretty good football players there. Thankful Matthew says, either the playoffs expanding to 12 teams, with the playoffs expanding to 12 teams, I could see it maybe potentially shortening the leash on some coaches. What are your thoughts on that? I know it still won't be easy to make the 12-team playoff, but it will be easier than making the 14 playoff for sure. If it does shorten the leash, how does it affect Heupel? How soon would we need to make the playoffs? I could see it a little bit maybe, because again, it will be easier than making the 12 team than the 14, but it still won't be as easy. I could see it maybe a little bit. I mean, for Heupel needs to worry about winning the East first, but you can still not win the East and not make an appearance in Atlanta and still make the 12-team playoffs. So your goal is to win the East. That was the goal of this year's team. That was the goal of last year's team. You need to win the East. You need to be in Atlanta. You need to represent. Of course, divisions are going away, but you need to be in the SEC championship game. I don't think it would affect Heupel an awful lot if you're still contending for playoff spots. I mean, last year Tennessee would have been in the playoffs. This year, depending on how it finishes, maybe Tennessee would make the 12-team playoff. We just kind of have to see how that plays out, not just from a Tennessee perspective, but of course across college football if it truly does shorten the leashes a little bit. Braden says, take us through the process of making an episode. It depends, man. During football season, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, it's super easy because the content is on a silver platter because we have games. You guys know in football season, Monday shows are the same. Rewatch notes, stats and cane are great, scoring plays. Tuesdays, a lot of from the press conference on Monday and then answering your questions. Wednesdays, talk to Josh, and then I look at the Pro Football Focus stats that matter. Thursdays, if there's a Locked On crossover I do it Thursday. Friday's a preview, and then I talk with Boogie. I mean, in season is really easy, but you still want to stay fresh and make sure it's compelling and getting you ready for the game. And the off season is when you got to get really creative. And I try to be engaging. I try to talk about things that you want to hear. Talk about things that would create discussion. I'm never going to be super hot takey. People have tried to get me to be more daring with my takes. I mean, I'm just not a hot take guy. That's just not me. The offseason, it's intriguing. Always talk basketball and baseball in segment 3 if you're going to do that, unless it's a specialty show. Always lead the program off with football. That's just kind of how I build Locked On Vols, and it's worked for a couple years now. But Braden, that's fun, man. Again, it's an absolute blessing to do it. I try to get my day started by recording parts of the show, if not the whole show at one time early in the day. What is stopping us from using the tush push with Joe Milton? Don't know, man. That needs to be addressed because I think it could work for sure. We'll get to two more questions. This one from East Tennessee Vol. Do you think Nico was pulled because he was flashing and looking so good to not start a quarterback controversy? Simple answer is no. I think the 2 pick sixes there in the second half to begin the second half took away from some drives offensively, and Tennessee wanted to play Gaston Moore and Navy Schuler, and I think that's what it was. With a portion of the fan base already asking for Joe to be replaced, Heupel maybe didn't want to get that to gain momentum. I don't think so. Joe Milton's playing well right now. There's no quarterback controversy. Nico looked good. Future's bright. But I don't think that those two things correlated whatsoever. Last question goes to Sawyer. Sawyer says, has there been a freshman that you thought would play a decent amount this year, but hasn't really seen the field much? That's a good question. I knew Aaron Carter would play. I thought Jeremiah T. Leonard would play some, and both have. I thought you'd see Ricky Gibson a little bit, and you've seen him. I guess the easy answer would be I don't think Cam Selden was going to get a whole lot of run, no pun intended, because the backfield is so deep. I guess it could be Ethan Davis, but really, they always say they want to play more than 2 tight ends, but since Heupel's staff's been here at Tennessee, they've never played more than 2 tight ends, so maybe I shouldn't have been surprised by that. But I guess if I had to give an answer, would probably be Ethan Davis. Really, more so than anything, I thought you'd see Andre Turrentine play a lot more because he played all of fall camp due to injuries ahead of him, and I truly thought you'd see more of a rotation at safety. You've seen a rotation at cornerback. You've seen it a little bit at star. You've not seen it at safety. That, for me, is what I was wrong about. I thought we would see just a little bit more, but I should have known again that they are married to the 2 safeties. All right. Thank you guys so much. Great questions. Thank you for submitting as always. Thank you for being here on a Tuesday. Every single Tuesday, every day is when you take over the show. We got Josh Ward Wednesday coming up tomorrow. PFF stats that matter. All that coming up as we get you set for Tennessee and Missouri coming up this weekend. Guys and gals, appreciate you for being here. Have a blessed day, and we'll talk again tomorrow.